So things are in your control more than you think. Things are in your control more than you think. I'll say it again. Things are in your control more than you think. You must watch over your thoughts. We create the reality by ourselves by perceiving them and in a certain way, and then by analyzing the data that we see around, and we by learning all the stuff, we literally create the reality around ourselves. So the psychologists say that negative self-talks are like some sort of poison that you put in your brain, and then it damages your willpower to think and take action, and then it is some sort of like a poison, physical poison in your physical body. And then the negative self-talk is something like that in your brain, in your thoughts. And most of us, we are doing that all the day, all the time. And by doing this, we are creating the reality around ourselves that, well, I am maybe not enough, and maybe I am not not worthy of having the thing that I want to have. If you show the same picture to 100 kids, they're gonna just come up with 100 different ideas of what they just saw. And it is also same about adults. When we are, all of us are living different lives, and then all of us have our own perception about the reality. Some of us are gonna be by default, they're gonna have this positive mindset that whatever happens in life, they're just gonna be okay with it and live by it. But there will be people who have almost everything, and they are living a very depressed life. So the problem is how we create, what kind of reality we are creating around ourselves, even though we are living in the same world, perceiving the same thing, and having almost these same facilities. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem when you have the ability to do stuff, but you are not being able to do that just because you think you are not enough. And just by not being able to analyze what is there, by not having that mental clarity to figure out the stuff. And one of the reasons why it happens is that we are not careful enough that what are the ways that we are thinking and perceiving the reality. I have seen people from very bad places, like they didn't have much of that facilities, but they did really well in life. And I have seen people who had all of those potentials to good, but they just couldn't do it anyway. And I think the reason for that is they just couldn't make that reality around themselves, which is they couldn't convince themselves enough that, well, I can do it anyway, or I am worthy of having it, or I'm if I try, I can just make it. They didn't have this much of confidence, or have all this mental clarity. So that is exactly why we need to be very careful about the way we think, the perceive the reality, and especially how we understand it. You can go to an entrepreneurial school and they will just teach you mindsets. You can go to psychology, a therapist, and they will just give you some clarity that will feel like, well, medicine. But in reality, what you actually needed is some insights about the reality around yourself. The therapists, they don't give you any sort of medicine, just some perspectives about your life. And you just get that and you feel like, well, I'm a free bird now, but back in 2 days I was like in a cage. So the way we think about ourselves, about the reality, and think about opportunities should be very carefully noticed by ourselves. Otherwise we will just fall into trap and not even realizing that. So mental clarity is really important, and you can get that by just carefully noticing how you think, how you perceive stuff, and just how you react. Reaction plays a big role when you are trying to do something. Yeah, especially in social life, reaction is something you need to watch over you all the time. Yeah. Okay. So the moral of the story is the way you create the reality around yourself by perceiving the world around yourself. You can change it any day you want, just by carefully noticing how you think and making the changes in your mindset that you want to change. Yeah. So things are in your control more than you think. Things are in your control more than you think. I'll say it again. Things are in your control more than you think. Alright, see you in the next one.